What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 406 of #AskGSM, here today for Wednesday, September 8th, 2021. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great week. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights. I didn't last night, I apologize, but if not, you can always leave a question on the wall itself. I will be sure to see it and include it in the video. If you want to send in a question on this very video as well, you can do that by dropping your question down below in the comment section on this very video, as I just said, and I'll include your question in next week's edition. So let's get right into it, guys. It's episode 406 here today, starting with Kadeem G from YouTube, with the unfortunate sad passing of Daphne Unger last Thursday. What's your favorite moment from Daphne during her wrestling career? Also, have you interviewed Daphne on WrestleRant before? She was a very beautiful person. Condolences to her family. Yeah, the whole Daphne situation is just incredibly sad. Super sad stuff, a very unfortunate tragedy. Between what went down on Wednesday, the video. I wasn't watching Dynamite Live. No, I did watch Dynamite Live. I wasn't on Twitter, though, so I guess the talk of Twitter that night was what was going on with Daphne on her IG Live and whatever, and I didn't really hear about it until after the fact, and you hear stories like that. I don't want to say a lot, but you hear stories like, oh, they're doing a live video, and it's kind of like a plea for help type of thing, and you kind of hope that they'll get the help that they need, or someone's going to be there to save the day, which typically does happen, but unfortunately in this case, it didn't have a happy ending at all. Very sad ending to just a terrible situation. So I was super sad to hear that. She was obviously, struggling with a lot towards the end of her life, and I could barely even watch the video. I saw something that someone tweeted out just for context. I hope that it's since gotten removed, because for that to even be on the internet at this point is just ridiculous. I'm not sure if it is or not. The video that I had seen was like early Thursday morning. So I was super bummed out to hear that. I haven't heard a lot about Daphne in recent years. I'm not really sure what she's been up to. I don't think she's wrestled in a while. My biggest exposure to Daphne was her time in TNA. I honestly didn't even really know she was in WCW, because obviously I wasn't watching WCW at the time. I haven't gone back and watched a lot of WCW stuff. And from what I can recall, she was only ever involved with the promotion towards the end. So it wasn't like it was in the 97, 98 peak years of WCW. It was right before it closed in 2000. My first exposure to Daphne and how I know who she is and what she's all about, obviously I've gone back and seen other stuff that she's done since then. And I hate to even admit this, my first exposure to Daphne was the awful shit that TNA was doing with her in 2008 with the knockoff Sarah Palin character. I mean, that sounds ridiculous, and it absolutely was. This was back in 2008, leading up to the election that year. Why they were doing this, I have no fucking clue. But she was feuding with the beautiful people, playing a Sarah... I don't know if it was a Sarah Palin. It was obviously a parody, but I don't know if they were calling her Sarah Palin, or if she had a different name and it was supposed to be her, or you were supposed to believe that it was her. I don't remember. I'm like, what is this shit? So I was kind of loosely watching TNA on and off from 2008 to 2009, then again from 2009 to 2010. I wasn't watching every single week. I tried to keep up with as much as I could. I remember the role that she had on the show. Then I remember she linked up with Stevie Richards and Abyss and was doing that whole thing. Raven as well, doing the Daphne character that she was known for from her WCW days. And I liked what she did there. The whole Scream Queen stuff I thought was great. I didn't get a chance to see many of her matches in TNA, and unfortunately injuries really did her in. There's a whole story there with the fact that she was injured, and TNA kind of tried to hide it and really kind of cover it up, and all this other shady shit that was going on at that point. That was in 2010. That wasn't when I was following the product regularly at that point. I was kind of tuning in here and there. So I wasn't really aware of the situation at the time, though I do remember it very loosely from reading about it online. At the time, anyway. I know all about it now. But that was a really unfortunate situation as well, that I think kind of paved the way for what happened last week with all the concussions, and she talked about her brain going to Boston at the end of the video last week. Just terrible stuff. And from all accounts, from everyone that reached out and everyone that tweeted about it last Thursday, all the nice things that came out from her coworkers and people that knew her and worked with her and stuff. She seemed like a great person. So I never had a chance to interview her or meet her. I never had any interaction with Daphne at all, to answer the second part of your question. It would have been cool because she seemed like she had a lot of great stories to tell from her career and life, and she seemed like a really cool person. So I was very sad to hear that, and rest in peace, Daphne. Condolences, like Kadeem said, to her family, friends, fans, etc. Super Pony from YouTube, their question was, with Kevin Owens' contract expiring in January, do you think he will resign or go to AEW? So this has been the talk of Twitter for the last 24 hours. Ever since NXT started last night, I saw the report broke from, it was courtesy of Sean Ross Sapp from Fightful, who has great scoops, a very credible source, obviously. I've said that here on the show before. He broke the news late last night that Kevin Owens' contract is actually up a lot earlier than we thought. The initial belief was that he re-signed a few years ago through 2023, in late 2018 for a 5-year deal that would take him all the way to 2023. Apparently that's not the case. And again, I trust Fightful because they're a great source of information. They broke, I believe, the Adam Cole news, and his contract expired when they said it would expire. Now he's in AEW. They broke the CM Punk news, and now he's in AEW. So I tend to believe the Kevin Owens reports. They didn't report anything along the lines of like, oh yeah, he's headed to AEW or he's definitely going to leave. They just said when his contract is up. And this is coming off of reports, not reports, but the teases from Owens himself tweeting the coordinates on Twitter yesterday to Mount Rushmore. Now to any casual fan or anyone unfamiliar with his pre-WWE background is probably like, what the fuck is the significance of that, Well, he, Adam Cole, and the Young Bucks, and I wasn't watching them at the time. I wasn't really overly familiar with who any of those guys were, but all four of them were a group called Mount Rushmore in PWG many years ago, before, Cole left for WWE, before Owens left for WWE in 2014. It was probably 2012, 2013, if not before then. Might have been even earlier than that. But they were a group close to a decade ago. They're all very close friends. Obviously, Adam Cole's now with the Bucks in AEW. Could Owens soon follow? That is the question. I put together a whole tweet thread last night on Twitter talking about why, if you don't think there's a legit chance that Owens leaves WWE for AEW, you have not been paying attention. I spoke to Owens last year. I don't want to say that he sounded disinterested. You can hear the interview for yourself here on the channel. It was from almost exactly a year ago, early October 2020, because I feel like that's just kind of the kind of person that he comes across as, where you would talk to him or you hear him speak or he shares stories or he's interviewed or whatever during a meet and greet, and he comes across like he doesn't care, but he's like one of the nicest people in the world, a great dude. I really don't get the sense that he's overly unhappy in WWE right now. I could be wrong. But at the same time, though, you look at what they've done or haven't done with him in the last year or so. I will never sit here and say that WWE has completely botched Kevin Owens. I put him in the same category as a Nakamura, as an Asuka, of people that I think, and Ambrose maybe as well, of people that were very successful in WWE. Some of the few examples of people who came up from NXT and were very successful, became champions, have held a lot of titles, gotten over and all this other stuff, but weren't as big as they should have been. Like you look at Asuka, and I've said this many, many, many times before. I think Asuka is probably one of the most successful women in WWE history. Yet we still say to ourselves what they're doing with Asuka. I mean, she hasn't on the show right now. She might be injured or whatever, but I go back to last year. She was all over Raw. She was the Raw Women's Champion for a very long time. You go back to that. Even with how successful she's been on Raw and SmackDown and NXT, or rather specifically the main roster, we still say to ourselves, man, I miss that Asuka from NXT, because at least they knew how to book her in terms of her character. With a guy like an Owens, his character is largely the same. It really isn't what they've done with him as a character. With Asuka, they made her out to be a complete clown. Owens isn't in that same category in that respect. I put them in the same category as I feel like he should be bigger than he is. I feel like Asuka, for as big as she is, isn't on the same level as the Four Horsewomen. For as big as Owens is, I don't put him on the same level as a Seth Rollins or a Roman Reigns, but he should be on that level of a guy that's just kind of untouchable, and he'll never be on main event consistently. They might not have much of note for him to do right now, but he'll never be below mid-card status. You know what I mean? Like, he's one of those guys that's kind of, I say untouchable, more so like, you can't really make him not over. Like, people still care about Kevin Owens. He gets great reactions. He holds a championship every now and again. He has great matches, and again, he's on the show more often than not. Doing what is the question, and that's the thing. For the last year, since he moved to SmackDown, he had that great feud with Roman Reigns. He lost to Roman Reigns 3 times. And I'm not even saying he should have beat him once, but it's like, once you go to the top and you peak there and you don't win the title and you lose multiple times, what more is there for you to do? He's been a heel and a face multiple times. He really has done it all in WWE. He even pitched going back to NXT. They said no. Would he want to go back now? And I asked him a year ago. He said no. That isn't really in the cards for him. He's been on Raw and SmackDown a million times. Honestly, though, aside from becoming world champion again, what more is there for him to do? And above all of that, the most important thing is he happy? Is he enjoying himself? Like with Daniel Bryan, another great example of a guy where I don't think he was unhappy in WWE at all. I mean, seeing the fun that he was having towards the end there, the great matches and storylines he was involved in, he's another guy where he had done it all. Had he stayed with WWE, which I think we were all expecting earlier this year, what more was there for him to do? Not much, but at the same time, though, it's like, what really more is there for him to do? Be a world champion? Been there, done that. Be a mid-card champion? Been there, done that. He's worked with everyone. But at the same time, though, if he's enjoying what he's doing and there's more people for him to work with, I mean, from a fan perspective, I'm looking at it as there's really, for Daniel Bryan to do in WWE, there's not much. AEW is a completely different landscape, different reigns in terms of like, he'd have a lot more freedom with what he can do, with what he can say. And some people don't really thrive with that type of freedom. I feel like he will and he can. Kevin Owens will as well, if he ever gets to that point. But what I was saying was, if Bryan is enjoying himself, and even if there's, from a fan perspective, not much more for him to do in WWE, but he likes just being around and working with some of the talent and helping put other people over and stuff like that, then that's really all that matters, and he's making decent money and whatever. But he's a guy that doesn't really care about, he also looks at it from the fan perspective. He wants more challenges ahead of him. He wants more stuff to do. He wants more people to work with and more things to accomplish. He's done all that he can in WWE. This was the beauty of the territories many, many decades ago that we haven't had since, and that we're kind of getting back to now with all the promotions that are popping up from Impact, WWE, AEW, New Japan, Ring of Honor, NWA, so on and so forth, MLW, among other promotions. There's a lot of places for people to go now. I'm not even saying everyone that leaves WWE should go to AEW. I feel like there's this notion that, their contract is up, they should go to AEW. How many fucking people has WWE fired in the last year and a half? And how many of them have actually gone to AEW? A handful, absolutely. But they're not signing, let's list off a couple of examples here. Have they signed the Bollywood Boys or Tony Nese or Arya Daivari? No. August Gray? No. Those are all cruiserweight guys, but even a guy like an EC3, I feel like he would have been a guy that you would think that would go to AEW. Maybe he wasn't interested, but I feel like if they came knocking on his door, he probably would have gone there. But it didn't really sound like they made any overtures for EC3 to go to AEW because they already kind of have an EC3 in MJF. They don't really need a guy like EC3 on the roster. I'm a big EC3 fan, but there really was no spot for him on the roster at that point. I'm a big Bronson Reed fan. If he shows up in AEW, I'd be happy for him, but at the same time, though, I really just don't see a spot for him. I'm not even saying that a guy like, Buddy Murphy should go to AEW. I feel like he'd absolutely be lost in the shuffle. Kevin Owens, though, I feel like is a big enough star. He's also friends with the people that run the place. I feel like he would not get lost in the shuffle. He's not a guy that's going to be on Dark every fucking week facing Dante Martin and Luther and all these other people. You know what I'm saying? I hate to even put Dante Martin in the same group as Luther, but that's a different topic for a different day. I'm really expanding this out here and giving a long-winded answer, but the answer is yes, I do think he can go to AEW. If I had to choose right now, I'm going to honestly say, like with Adam Cole, I really thought he would stay and he didn't. If Adam Cole, of all people, was willing to leave, and he hadn't even experienced the main roster yet, he is a prime example of a guy that you would think, okay, we don't really know how things are going to turn out with the main roster, and, let's just give it a shot. And, AEW looks cool, my girlfriend's there, my friends run the place, blah, blah, blah. But I've never been on Raw and SmackDown full-time before. Let's give it a shot. If it doesn't work out, we can always leave 5 years down the road or whatever his contract would have stated. Let's just give it a shot. He didn't. He up and left. And he wasn't unhappy in WWE. He just saw the writing on the Raw. He probably just, Raw as well, but he probably saw the writing on the wall and that he was not going to get really anywhere on Raw and SmackDown. Maybe get a brief mid-card push. He would not have been above a certain level in that company. We don't know for a fact, but looking at the recent track record of WWE and looking at the recent track record of AEW, I tend to believe that he would have more of a shot at success in AEW than he would in WWE. Same with Andrade. Has he lit the world on fire so far in AEW? No, he hasn't. But I would rather see AEW, I would rather see him in AEW having some sort of a storyline with Pac than being in WWE and not even being fucking used. I mean, are we forgetting about that? The guy was clear to compete for months. They hadn't used him since January, and he's like, fuck this, I really just don't want to be here anymore. And even when he was on TV, they threw him on a random-ass tag team. He was losing random-ass matches. I will take whatever the fuck AEW is doing with him over whatever the fuck WWE was attempting to do with him. Like, it's not even close. And it will reach a point where AEW is going to have to let some people go. I think Joey Janela is a complete waste of a roster spot. He's just not that good in my opinion. That's just me. If you feel differently, that's cool. I'm not a big fan of the guy at all at this point. He's not even on Dynamite. So clear up some roster space for a guy like him. Even some of the originals. Jericho won't be there forever. The EVPs will probably always be there. But, some of the originals. Moxley has a lot more to do there. That doesn't really, I don't really see him going anywhere anytime soon. But some of those people at some point will have to leave to make room for the newer people. I mean, it's inevitable. They've only been around for 2.5 years, though. That's the thing. We won't start to see that sort of exodus from AEW and maybe some of those people going to WWE for a while. For I would give it another year or two at the very least, if not longer than that. Because AEW their bubble hasn't burst yet. They still have more roster space. They're still able to bring more people in. AEW would be fucking foolish to not make an overture to Kevin Owens and attempt to bring him in. Again, if they're not making deals to literally every ex-WWE guy like TNA was doing back in the day or a WCW. They're bringing in the cream of the crop, and WWE just so happens to be letting go of a lot of great talented people that they were stupid to let go of. And all the people they left on their own see the writing on the wall and realize, well, this place is more fun, let's go over there and go where the buzz is. You know what I mean? So, if you ask me right now, in September of 2021, do I think Kevin Owens will leave? I honestly do. Being friends with a lot of these people, he's good friends with Kevin Owens. His good friend Finn Balor still on the roster. They're both on SmackDown together. He was good friends with Everrise. They got fucking fired. They're over in AEW. I think he should leave. And not only from a business standpoint, will he make more money in AEW? Probably not. He'd probably make the same, if not less. WWE can offer him a lot more money, but to do fucking what? To stand there in a necktie and get interviewed by Logan Paul? I mean, honestly, at this point, from a booking standpoint, what is there for fucking to do? What is there to do for Kevin Owens to do? What is there for Kevin Owens to do in WWE at this point? Aside from maybe going back to the main event scene. And I just don't see that happening. The guy's been a world champion in 4.5 years. If he's happy doing what he's doing, that's all that fucking matters. I don't get the sense, not that he's unhappy, but I get the sense that he would jump at the opportunity to do something else elsewhere on a bigger stage, and as big of a stage as WWE, or at least close to it, and be with his friends again. So I do think he might leave. And it's not like, oh, fuck WWE. I want to see WWE do better, and I want to see their shows improve, specifically Raw. So I would like to see people go to Raw or go to NXT. The issue with people signing with NXT at this point, as good as NXT is, and I thoroughly enjoy the product, it's a fucking wasteland in terms of people get called up to die. And the track record of people getting called up and being successful is very slim at this point. It's getting slimmer and slimmer by the year. Damian Priest has thrived. Matt Riddle has thrived. Bianca has thrived. Not everyone has had that sort of success, though. They are the exception to the rule. They are far and few between. If I'm an up-and-coming indie guy with a lot of buzz, I would rather... It depends on what type of performer you are. If you're a bigger guy like a Braun, your style might fit more to WWE. They might be more inclined to push you than a guy like... I don't even know. Whoever they're signing in AEW right now. So, time will tell. We'll see who else will, defect over to AEW. Look, again, I don't want to see a Braun Strowman. I like the guy. Do I want to see him in AEW? Honestly, no, I really don't. I just don't see his style fitting in AEW whatsoever. I just feel like that would be a terrible fit. So it's not and maybe Tony Khan did reach out to Braun Strowman about bringing him in. I have no fucking clue. But I'm just thinking of who would make sense to go there and I think would do well, and there's a place for him to, there's stuff for him to do, or for her to do, or whoever it is. There's stuff for them to do, people to work with. Doesn't make sense. Would they get pushed? I don't think Buddy Murphy, Braun Strowman, or Bronson Reed are getting significant pushes in AEW. I do think Daniel Bryan, Adam Cole, Aleister Black at some point, Malachi Black, Andrade will at some point. I believe that. Maybe I'll be wrong. Time will tell. And if it doesn't work out, then he leaves. I mean, I think it's better than going back to WWE right now, where it's just so many people are doing a whole lot of nothing. I'd rather see a guy like Kevin Owens in AEW, to be honest with you, just to see him up against some fresh opponents, people that he hasn't worked with yet, do stuff that he hasn't done before, and get a better shot of success. Not guaranteed shot at success, but a better shot of success than whatever the fuck he's doing in WWE right now. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the Twitter machine. Check out his show, Real Honesty, with John Ritland on YouTube. He does great work. His question was, so could All Out be considered the best AEW pay-per-view in its short existence? Even with the flaws, it was a very memorable pay-per-view from top to bottom. Yeah, I do think so. I think it was absolutely the best AEW pay-per-view to date. And I was there for Double or Nothing 2019 with Mr. Marceau, RJ, 2.5 years ago. I remember people saying coming out of that show, not us, but I remember people saying online, oh, was Double or Nothing the greatest pay-per-view of the decade? Was it the greatest pay-per-view of all time? It absolutely was not. And I thoroughly enjoyed that show. I really liked Double or Nothing. Being there live was great. I didn't think the show was as exceptional as people were making it out to be. I thought it was a very good show and a great way for AEW to start. I still don't think it's one of the greatest pay-per-views of all time. I will go on record in saying All Out 2021 is one of the greatest pay-per-views I've ever seen and one of the most fun I've ever had at a wrestling show in a long time, if not ever. It's up there with I've been to a lot of takeovers too. Takeover New York, Takeover Brooklyn 1, Takeover Philly for Gargano and Andrade, an amazing match, and a lot of other great WrestleManias. I've been to a ton of WrestleManias and a ton of other WWE, Impact, and Ring of Honor shows, including AEW Double or Nothing 2019. This one almost trumps all of them. I thought overall it was a very complete card. We'll discuss this later, but it gave me WrestleMania 17 vibes. And obviously, we got to let the aftermath play out. Like, I think a big reason why WrestleMania 17 is so, beloved is because it kind of marked the end of an era for WWE as far as the end of the Attitude Era. So will this end, or rather, I don't think it's the end of an era for AEW. I think it's more so the beginning. Was this the peak? Time will tell. I don't think this was the peak. I think the company can continue to do well, get bigger and better from here. If it was the peak, that's not good. But we won't know that for another 6 months to a year. I do think that it was an amazing show. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Was it a perfect pay-per-view? No, I don't think a perfect pay-per-view exists. But Money in the Bank 2011, that's what this show gave me vibes of. Even more so than WrestleMania 17. I wasn't around for WrestleMania 17, so I can't say, I was feeling this while watching that show. I got Money in the Bank 2011 vibes from All Out 2021. In that it was, and the thing with Money in the Bank 2021, or 2011 rather, although Money in the Bank this year was also a damn good show. The thing with that show was that they had a great build-up to it for like a couple of matches, and they had a lot of great matches on the show. They were also in Chicago. I mean, this show was in Chicago too, which is cool. But it was also all downhill from there. Like, it wasn't like, the company really blew up at that point, and Money in the Bank really marked the beginning of a new era. Yeah, I mean, it kind of did in terms of who they put over. Like, Punk and Christian and Bryan all won their matches on that show. It sort of started to introduce the influx of smaller indie guys in WWE, winning championships and becoming world champion and stuff like that, because prior to them, we weren't really getting that a whole lot with Bryan and Punk. Rollins went on to become champion. Owens went on to become champion. Ambrose went on to become champion. A lot of indie guys, AJ Styles. I don't think those guys would have had the same success had Punk and Bryan not thrived. But still, though, the immediate aftermath of that Money in the Bank show was not great at all. I mean, honestly, I loved 2011 in WWE. It was a great year for me as a fan. A lot of fun stuff going on. The product did not blow up. The ratings weren't better. People weren't... Like, the very next night on Raw, the next night's show was fucking terrible for the most part. So, like, I don't think AEW is going to drop the ball as much as WWE did 10 years ago. But, like, the Punk Cena match on that show was one of the best matches I've ever seen. One of my favorite matches of all time. The Bucks and Lucha Bros match, was it my favorite match of all time? No, but it was one of the best, if not the best tag team match I've ever seen in person, if not just in general. Like, the match was incredible. It was an easy 5 stars without a doubt. In my opinion, you might see it differently, and that's totally okay. In my opinion, I think it was one of that was like the resident 5-star match on that show. We got a very good main event. Good storytelling with MJF and Jericho the crowd was really into. A great women's match. Like, even Money in the Bank 2011, people like to fantasize about that show, and it was an amazing pay-per-view. You gotta remember, though, that show had Big Show versus Mark Henry on it. And what was it? Brie or Nikki Bella versus Kelly Kelly. Those matches were not 5-star classics. All Out 2021 had better wrestling on the whole than that show did overall. I mean, it's not even close. That show had a lot of great moments. It had a fucking world title match, end in DQ at Money in the Bank 2011. No DQs at All Out 2021. But again, Orton and Christian was a very good match. Omega and Christian was a very good match. The debuts of Bryan Danielson and Adam Cole were not exactly shocking. At least in Bryan's case. Adam Cole was a bit more surprising. A great double swerve to close out the show with. The Minoru Suzuki surprise was really cool. The Ruby Soho debut was awesome. The Casino Battle Royal was a lot of fun. I thought the Kojima and Moxley match was very good. Miro and Kingston, a very good opener. It very much felt like a complete card. And even Marshall and White, QT Marshall and Paul White, was not a great match by any means. It was a completely pointless match. But it did serve as the buffer in that it was exactly what it needed to be. It gave me enough time to go get a fucking ice cream and get back in my seat before the main event started. And then Punk and Darby was a lot of fun as well. So, yes, I think that All Out will go down as one of the best wrestling pay-per-views of the last decade. I'm standing by that. Maybe I won't feel the same way in a month, but for now, I'm standing by it. I really do. I think being there, I got to go back and watch it on Bleacher Report and whatnot, but being there live, I can tell you the 4 hours never dragged, and I really, truly did think that it was one of the best pay-per-views I've ever seen and one of the greatest shows I've ever attended. It really was that good of a show. His next question. So WWE splitting up the tag team turmoil match on Raw. What was that about? I don't really know, aside from just creating another main event for the show. Because I guess they really wanted to give tag team turmoil some time. They do this with all their gauntlet matches. They give it a lot of fucking time. And Raw has 3 hours, so honestly, it's a tired formula, but why the hell not? And it works. I enjoyed tag team turmoil on Monday. It was one of the better parts of Raw, I thought. I thought the first half of it with New Day was great. They picked up where they left off in the main event of the show. That was also well done. The crowd was into it, even after a 3-hour show. Maybe Miami was louder than most crowds, but I thought they did very well with, and I thought they were very loud and lively and energetic for what they were getting. So I enjoyed the tag team turmoil stuff. We've never seen that before, where it's broken up and then it, resumes later in the show. It was stupid because, why wouldn't you just continue it right then and there, or just disqualify the teams that can't go? I mean, yeah, it made no sense from a storyline standpoint, but from a booking standpoint, it was something different. It was interesting, and I liked it. So honestly, I can't really complain. It was better than most of the shit we see on Raw nowadays, at least in my opinion. In regards to All Out, he says, is there a pay-per-view in recent memory that had as many debuts? Minoru Suzuki, Ruby Soho, Adam Cole, Bryan Danielson. The question is, which will be the most beneficial to the company? No, I can't think of a show that had as many debuts as that one did. I know Double or Nothing had had a decent amount of debuts. Moxley arrived, the now Dark Order, then the Super Smash Bros. Showed up, which went over like a fart in church because no one knew who the fuck they were. But they debuted on that show. Moxley debuted on that show. Awesome Kong debuted on that show. There might have been one more. But AEW does a good job of debuting a lot of people on the same show. I mean, you shouldn't do it all the time. You can't do it all the time. But even Double or Nothing a few months ago had Mark Henry make his debut as an analyst, and Leo Rush debuted in the Casino Battle Royale, which was cool. So I thought that was pretty nice, and I thought that was well done. I thought the debuts on Sunday at All Out were also well done. Which will be the most beneficial to the company? Suzuki, definitely. No, I'm just kidding. He's obviously not coming to AEW full-time, but I am looking forward to not Danielson, although that would be fucking awesome. Moxley and Suzuki tonight. I think of the four of them, all four of them are great. Soho, Cole, and Danielson are with AEW full-time, from what I understand. Definitely Danielson, I would have to say. Adam Cole's a great dude as well. Soho was awesome. She's going to be a real star in that women's division. Beneficial to the company overall, I got to go Danielson, because he is an established main event guy. A lot like Punk. People that don't watch AEW know who the fuck Daniel Bryan is. He was in the WWE system on and off for over 10 years. He's a multi-time world champion. But the difference, I think, between him and Punk, at least in my opinion, I think Bryan Danielson has a lot more years left in the tank. I don't know how long Punk's going to be there for, how many matches he's actually going to wrestle. I don't see Punk in the ring every single week. I don't think he should be in the ring every single week. I can see Bryan Danielson wrestling every single fucking week against a variety of opponents. There's a lot more matches to be had with Danielson. He brings a lot of value to that company. He can talk. He can be a great ambassador, a great spokesperson for AEW. He's an awesome human being. He's going to help elevate the talent of tomorrow. I really see no con to Bryan Danielson being in AEW. Not that there's a con to anyone else that you mentioned, or really just anyone else in general being in that company. But there's so much to be gained from Danielson being in AEW. Cole can be a real star there. He's also a great spokesperson. But he's also, to some people who don't watch AEW and didn't watch NXT and only watch Raw and SmackDown, he's a relative unknown. So he's not going to be as immediately beneficial as a Danielson can be. I think Danielson can be beneficial right now. And again, he can also be beneficial in 3 years from now and helping put over the talent tomorrow. Soho is going to be amazing for that women's division, and Suzuki is not going to be, he's not going to be there full time. I think he's only there for tonight, but that's going to be a lot of fun as well. It might benefit tonight's episode, but overall, I think Danielson will be the most beneficial for AEW in the long term. At Jeremy 8911, do you see Adam Cole destroying the Elite from the inside, or see Cole and the Young Bucks turning on Kenny Omega once Omega loses the title? I think Alexis actually proposed both possibilities to me the other day. I think it was like the day after the pay-per-view we were talking about it. And she said both things, and it got me thinking, and I think either one would make sense, especially with the first one, because the Elite, I mean, they explained it on Being the Elite this week in their own way of saying, like, oh, we brought Adam Cole back from the dead, and it doesn't really sound like that the fact that they killed him, he's even aware of that. So they can always go back to it. Adam Cole will be a babyface at some point. Should it be anytime soon? I don't think so. Is he intentionally just attempting to destroy the Elite from the inside? I don't think so. I don't really need a Kenny Omega Adam Cole feud anytime soon. Maybe at some point down the road. I think at some point it would be awesome, because I wanted to see it a few years ago before I went to WWE, but we never got it. But yeah, I think a Cole Omega feud would be awesome for down the road. I don't think he's back just to turn the Elite, just to destroy the Elite from the inside. Because if you do that, you effectively turn the guy babyface, and you already just brought in two major league babyfaces in CM Punk and Bryan Danielson. I don't think you need another babyface in Adam Cole. I think he can be a great heel on that heel side and be one of those guys they can build up on that side of the card. So I wouldn't be opposed to it, and it would make sense. I just don't want to see it right now. As far as the Bucks and Cole turning on Omega, you say once he loses the title, he's probably losing the title soon. If not a full gear, maybe a double or nothing. He's obviously on borrowed time until Hangman comes back and beats Omega for that belt. Do you immediately destroy the Elite and have Cole and the Bucks turn on Omega the same way the Bucks and Omega turned on Cole after he lost the Ring of Honor championship a few years ago? Maybe, but then wouldn't that turn Omega back into a babyface? And I feel like it's just too soon for that, and he's better off as a heel right now anyway, I think. I think he's just a better heel in general. So, not bad possibilities. I would rather see the first one over the second one. But there's a lot of different ways they can go with this, and I am intrigued. The Elite shit was kind of growing tired in terms of like the shit they were doing in the comedy stuff, closing on every show and cheating in every match. It was getting fucking tired. So at least Adam Cole, throwing him into the mix makes it a little bit fresher, creates more possibilities, more matchups, more team-ups, more combinations of the Elite. I'm cool with that. We'll see how much further they can go with it and where they go with it in the end and what the ultimate end game is. I don't even know if they know yet, which is cool because you kind of make it up as you go along. In a good way. WWE makes it up as they go along, and it's never really that good. You got to have some semblance of a plan. Maybe they have a plan, maybe they don't, but I trust the process as far as their creative goes. The second question, who do you want to see Bryan Danielson and Adam Cole wrestle in AEW? If there was an answer for everyone, that would be my answer, because I think Adam Cole versus pretty much anyone, Danielson versus pretty much anyone is going to be great. They're both awesome performers. Danielson and Jungle Boy is going to be great. Cole in having his first match against Jungle Boy one of these weeks is going to be fucking a lot of fun. That's going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to that. Oh man, Danielson and Punk one more time would be cool. Danielson and Darby Allin would be a cool clash of styles. Him and MJF would be a lot of fun. I know he wants to work with him. Him and Sammy Guevara would be great, I think. That would be fucking awesome. Adam Cole versus Omega, I think would be a lot of fun. Him and Adam Page as well. Excuse me. RJ pitched that to me yesterday. I'm thinking, well, that's actually a really good idea. Maybe he can kind of be the gatekeeper to Omega. Page has got to beat Cole before he can get to Omega. And I'm like, oh, that's actually a great idea. So Cole and Page Omega and Cole. Cole and Cody Rhodes would be a lot of fun. We got that match in Northeast Wrestling like 4 years ago, right before Cole went to WWE. It didn't air anywhere else. They just did it at that one indie show, and that was it. They never did it in Ring of Honor. So doing it in a bigger stage of AEW, I think would be great. Cole and Moxley would be interesting. We never got to see that in WWE. Cole and Black again would be awesome. They always had great chemistry in NXT. Andrade and Cole at some point would be a lot of fun. I mean, there's so many possibilities. Really, anybody. I don't know about a Joey Janela or a Luther per se, but pretty much anyone else I'd be down with them facing. I think that'd be just a great match for really whoever they go up against. At Supersonic X 1991, what are your thoughts on Adam Cole, Bryan Danielson, and Ruby Soho debuting it All Out? Hopefully they will do better to help out the main event scene. Like I just said, I loved all the debuts. I thought they were perfect. There is something to be said for spacing out arrivals, but what they did was just so different than what they usually do. They did a double debut. I mean, how often do we see that? And it wasn't just a double debut. It was a double debut of two major names. Like, it was a great swerve thinking, oh, we're not getting Bryan after all. We're just getting Cole, which was great enough. And then we got Bryan too, and it really set the stage for a lot of potential matchups down the road. So I thought the debuts were well done. Soho's debut was very much anticipated ahead of time. I think we all thought when she got fired 3 months ago that, oh, it's right before All Out. Maybe she could show up in the Battle Royal, and that's exactly what happened. They didn't even announce the Battle Royal at that point. We kind of figured that's what they were going to do. And that's what we got, and I loved it. I thought it was very well done. It was a decent Battle Royal, and Soho winning was the right call, I thought. So yeah, the debuts were great, and it made for great reactions inside of the arena. Very enjoyable experience, and I think they're all off to a strong start in their new home of AEW. Non-wrestling related question also from Supersonic X 1991. With the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer revealed a few weeks ago and Marvel hinting at a Doctor Strange related Spider-Man suit, do you think this week's What If episode might give us a hint of Sorcerer Supreme Spider-Man? I don't. I've heard rumors of that. The What If episode is already out now as we speak. It's released every Wednesday. Maybe I could see them potentially exploring that in the No Way Home movie. I don't think we would get a Sorcerer Supreme Spider-Man in What If itself. Maybe. I think, isn't there an episode about Spider-Man and Doctor Strange? I think this week's episode is about the zombies. I don't know if that's the same one or not, but I thought there was a Spider-Man Doctor Strange episode, and maybe that could explore that possibility. I would tend to think that we might get it more likely in No Way Home than we would on What If, but time will tell. I think it's a very interesting possibility nonetheless. Their next question, thoughts on Mick Foley's video that WWE is the problem. Is he extremely right about that? So, it's not that WWE is the problem. It's not like, oh, everything wrong with wrestling is WWE. WWE, for whatever the hell their product is right now, they are doing a lot of good stuff. Not everything they're doing is terrible. Not everything. Raw is just abysmal and tough to sit through most weeks. I think the stuff they're doing with Roman Reigns is great. I think anything Roman Reigns has been involved in for the last year has been money. I'm not a big fan of the Becky Lynch heel turn, but the feud that she and Bianca have had in recent weeks has been great. I think that's made for great TV. I think the RK Bro stuff has been a lot of fun. I think Damian Priest has really shined as a star in the Raw roster. McIntyre and Drew are having great matches every fucking week. Lashley's been a lot of fun as WWE champion. So not everything in WWE is awful. What Mick Foley said, though, in that minute and 15 seconds was 100% spot on. Even naming Karrion Kross is like, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Like, just demeaning these people by calling them up and giving them new gear. Why? If it worked in NXT, and not everything that works in NXT will work on the main roster, but everything about the presentation of Karrion Kross worked in NXT, at least give it a shot on the main roster. They haven't even brought Scarlett up yet, which is just bizarre to me. I don't know why, but I don't know. It's just, if she's a part of the act, why would you take her away from it? It's fucking dumb. The overall video, though, he was spot on about it. People are thinking, oh, but Mick Foley said that WWE isn't the place to go anymore. That's not what he said. If you watch the video, he said that WWE isn't the only place to aspire to go to anymore. AEW is also an option. For a long time, WWE was the be-all, end-all. It's not anymore. It's the be-all, end-all in addition to AEW. AEW isn't on the same level as WWE in terms of, like, how many people know about it and finances and stuff like that, obviously. But in terms of creatively and seeing your career grow and actually becoming a success in wrestling, that's also a place for them to go. And I feel like they have a better track record so far. And maybe at some point that'll change. They are a true alternative to WWE. And that's a real reason that's appealing to a lot of talent, as Foley said. So everything he said was 100% spot on. I don't think he was bashing WWE. He wants to see them do better. Like, Mick Foley will appear on Raw in an instant if they call him. But why wouldn't he? He has no bad blood with anyone there. They're not booking him in any storylines. He's just coming in for the occasional cameo, so he can kind of do whatever the fuck he wants. It's his role as the Raw GM is not in jeopardy because he's not doing that shit anymore. He can kind of speak his mind, and everything that he's been saying for the most part is 100% correct. He's not wrong with what he said the other day on Twitter. He was 100% correct. Their track record with WWE right now, more than ever, is just not good. It was always a risk to go to WWE, but with how they've treated talent lately, hiring people just to fire them and not even bothering to call people up and then calling them up or ruining them, it's scary. And it's not like, oh, if you're small, you're kind of fucked. No, Karrion Kross is not a small guy. He is a prototypical WWE superstar, and they haven't fucked him over yet, but he's also not the same star that he was in NXT. Losing his debut match to Jeff Hardy in 2 minutes, that is a wrestling hill I will die on. Is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. If you're going to have him win a majority of his matches in recent weeks, then why the fuck would you have him lose his debut to Jeff Hardy? And it wasn't even like, oh, it's going to lead somewhere. It's going to lead somewhere. All the fucking marks. Oh, it's going to lead somewhere. It's going to lead to Scarlett coming out. It's been 2 fucking months. Where the fuck is Scarlett? You know what I mean? It makes no sense. And the people that continue to defend this company is beyond me. I love WWE. I love AEW. I love all these companies. I love watching wrestling. I'll still watch Raw every week. I enjoy some parts of Raw. I enjoy Dynamite. I'm looking forward to tonight. I'm not a shill for any one company. I'm a shill for all these companies because I want to see them do well. I want to see WWE improve. So my favorite wrestlers will want to go back to WWE or go to WWE for the first time. Growing up on WWE, I want to see my favorite wrestlers in WWE. But because the creative is so fucking piss poor for the most part, in this new edict about no indie guys, why the fuck would you want to go there? AEW, for a lot of these people, is just a much better fit. For the current landscape of wrestling, AEW is a better fit for most people. Like I said, with Braun, if he went back to WWE, he would probably be fine because he kind of fits their mold. And, he's one of those guys that was very successful. Not as big as he should have been, but very successful. If he went back, he'd probably win another title or two because that's what they do. And he's a guy that they would push. He's one of those guys that they will always be high on in some form or fashion and always put him in storylines. He was in the WWE title match like 3 months ago. 3 or 4 months ago, right before he got canned. But anyway, the people that defend WWE and like, oh, well, listen, I've seen so many defenders of WWE, people coming out of the woodworks. And listen, I love the company. I went to fucking SummerSlam on their behalf a couple weeks ago. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I thought SummerSlam was a very fun show. But the week-to-week booking, you can't defend it. It's fucking terrible. And don't be part of the problem, because then you're just kind of not padding their bottom line, but reinforcing the fact that they think this is good television. It's fucking not. It's not good television for the most part. They need to change, and they won't change until they see AEW as a legit threat. They don't see them as a legit threat until they're doing better numbers ratings-wise, or USA or Fox or NBC or whatever pull out of their, the TV deals are terrible. They will not be inclined to change. Until their back is up against the wall like they were with WCW 25 years ago, they're not going to fucking change. So let's stop expecting that they will. They might do some cool stuff here and there, but the product will not consistently change until they put in the effort. And so far, I'm just not seeing it. But Mick Foley hit the nail right on the fucking head of this video the other day. At Ewagyu91, well, this year is far from over still. Do you think that All Out will be the best wrestling event of the year? I do. So far it is, in my opinion. I thought WrestleMania was a lot of fun, like I said. I thoroughly enjoyed the Double or Nothing was a great show. I thought SummerSlam was a very fun show. That wouldn't be the pay-per-view of the year. Money in the Bank would come close. I thought Money in the Bank was an excellent show. I thought that was one of the best pay-per-views I've seen in a long time from WWE. Money in the Bank would be up there. I enjoyed the Rumble. It's hard to put like the pay-per-views with no fans in the conversation because they're just not the same. But I would probably put Money in the Bank at a very close number 2. Double or Nothing would be up there. I love TakeOver. Stand and Deliver was a good 2-night show. I loved the most recent one. TakeOver 36 was an excellent show overall. So there's a lot of great wrestling you can put in that conversation. But so far, I would put All Out at the top of the list, in my opinion. Your thoughts on CM Punk donning tights in his return match with Darby Allin? I thought it was cool. I don't know if he doesn't want to wear the trunks anymore or if he wants to switch it up for the new chapter of his career. I'm not sure if he's explained that yet. Doesn't bother me. I don't know if people were bothered by it. I wasn't on Twitter on Sunday, but I don't know if people were bothered like, oh, I needed to see the trunks. yeah, that's classic Punk, but it's the same Punk, but it's not the same Punk. He's doing some stuff differently. He wants to look a bit different. I love the slick back hair. I love that he's still doing that. He's not, he used to shave his head every now and again in WWE. This is a small thing. This is like completely subjective. But like I always liked him with the hair and the slick back hair. That's how I remember him from like 2011. That's my favorite incarnation of Punk. The pants is fine. I think he looks good in the pants, and it doesn't really bother me at all. I think it looks cool, honestly. His next question, your current thoughts on Miro, and do you see Thunder Rosa winning the AEW Women's World Championship off of Britt Baker? So with Miro first, I've said this before, I think what they've done with Miro as the TNT champion has been very good overall. He hasn't lost, I don't know if he's lost a single singles match so far in AEW. The Kip Sabian shit was just not good at all. The video game shit was terrible. That went on for way longer than it should have. Now that he's doing the TNT title stuff, I like the whole God's favorite champion thing. I thought he and Kingston had a good match. I liked him in Archer, Double or Nothing. The problem with Miro, though, I will say, not everything they're doing with him is perfect. I want to see him on the show more. If he's the TNT champion, then why are we seeing him more on pay-per-view than we are on the actual show? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we don't see him on Dynamite enough. He's been on a little bit more lately, but for the majority of the summer, we hardly saw this guy at all. And he hasn't really had any tough competition. He faced Lee Johnson and Griff Garrison, or who was it, Brian Pillman. Oh, I'm so intimidated. Like Dante Martin. Like, these guys are good, and they're having good matches, and they're up-and-comers, but I want to see him up against the Sammy Guevaras and the Jungle Boys, and we're finally starting to get that now that he's facing Eddie Kingston, and hopefully Sammy Guevara at some point. But like, he needs more challenges like that, because him beating a bunch of dark guys isn't really going to matter too much in the long run. But I mean, that's what Darby was doing, but at least Darby was on the show every week. Miro wasn't on the show every week. So if he's having one match a month, and again, it's against a main eventer from the dark shows, then it doesn't really mean all that much. He's got to wrestle at least a little bit more, or at least talk a little bit more, or hear from him a little bit more. I feel like he can kind of be overlooked from time to time because they're not featuring him enough, in my opinion. That's just, subjective, and that's nitpicking, but I feel like he's not on the show enough. At least as the champion. At Ross got 1996, the former At Hardy DX fan. Ross, my man, what's going on? Your question was, does All Out 2021 reach WrestleMania 17 levels of good? I discussed this earlier. To me, that was the vibe this show gave me. I'm not saying it's a better show than WrestleMania 17. Was it their version of WrestleMania 17 so far? Yeah, I think it's the best show they've ever done. Hands down. I really do. They had fans in the building. It was a sold-out crowd. They were hot all night. There wasn't a bad match on the show. Like, All Out last year was the weakest AEW show I've ever seen. I think John Ritland mentioned that last week on the show. That was one of the weakest shows I've seen from them because there was just a lot of stuff that made me scratch my head, left me wondering, why is this on the main card? Everything on that card felt like it belonged. Even the White Marshall match really didn't belong. But even that was there to serve as a buffer between Punk and Allen and the main event. And it allowed me to go get food and go get an ice cream bar. Go get one of the CM Punk ice cream bars, which I thought was cool. And it was very delicious, by the way. But yeah, like, everything served the purpose. Even WrestleMania 17 had filler on it. That was like the fucking gimmick battle royal was Paul White and QT Marshall. So it wasn't the same atmosphere because it wasn't in the Astrodome with 40, 50,000 people or whatever. It's a little different than that. But I think the fact it wasn't a smaller building led to greater reactions when Danielson and Cole showed up. If it was in a stadium, it wouldn't have got that same reaction. Like, look no further than the Brock return. The Brock return was amazing, but I feel like the roof would have come off the fucking place if they were in a smaller arena. So yeah, I think it is their version of WrestleMania 17. Is it a better show than WrestleMania 17? Too early to say. I wouldn't go that far. I will say, like I told RJ, I said to a lot of people, I've just thought about this. I think it's one of the best pay-per-views of the last decade. In 2001, we had WrestleMania 17. In 2020 and 2011, we had Money in the Bank 2011. In 2021, we have All Out 2021. So, to me, those are the three, not counting takeovers, but those are the three best pay-per-views so far of their respective decades. I think Money in the Bank 2011 is still the best show of the 2010s, as far as WWE goes. Maybe there were Wrestle Kingdoms that were better. There probably were. As far as a major U.S. promotion, that was the best show of the decade to me. And so for All Out, we're still very early on in the decade, but even the last 10 years, I would say it was probably my favorite wrestling pay-per-view since Money in the Bank 2011, which says a lot, but that, I think it's true. I think the pay-per-view really had a little bit of everything, and it was a great show, and there really wasn't anything I would have done differently. There weren't any booking decisions like, oh, that was stupid, or any matches that were like, oh, that sucked. I really didn't have that feeling about anything on the show. It was consistently good and consistently great stuff, including one of the best matches I've ever seen, and including a lot of great debuts that went over really, really well that people were very hot for. And a hot Chicago crowd. You can't go wrong there either. And that's going to do it, guys, for episode 406 of #AskGSM here today for Wednesday, September 8th, 2021. Thank you guys, as always, for checking out the show. I appreciate it. Be sure to tweet me on the Twitter machine for more questions they answer here on the show at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Leave your comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Have an awesome one, guys. Be sure to hit the bell button as well to be notified every time a new video goes up. We've had a lot of content go up this last week from, all my all-out live reaction videos, including the debuts of Danielson and Cole, which was awesome live. Those went up on Monday. My interviews the last couple of days with Dewdrop, Ted DiBiase, Damian Priest last week, Nikki Ash, Jinder Mahal, Drew McIntyre, all of which are now on the channel. They've all since been uploaded, so check those out. Subscribe for those. More classic interviews, more new interviews coming up soon. Raw Talk reviews, WWE 24 reviews, Talking Smack, SmackDown audio review coming up this Saturday most likely, because I will be at SmackDown on Friday night. So hopefully I'll give an on-site report from the show this coming Saturday here on the channel. And that's about it, guys. Just have a great rest of your week. Enjoy the month of September. I'm Graham G. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.